Good morning, you guys. I wanted to come on a little bit early. And for those of you that are here for the twin Batman show, you can fast forward through this if you come on a little bit later. You didn't really miss anything. But I wanted to follow up on yesterday's show because there were quite a few of you that were pretty upset with me, a little bit angry in the chat. Not a lot, but I would say maybe 5 to 10%. So I wanted to clear some things up with what we were talking about yesterday. And the point I was trying to get across to you guys was that with the tools that the officer had, the killing of the knife-wielding girl was in fact justified. If in fact it was a real situation. I think some people were upset because they thought, oh, well, it wasn't even real. Well, set that aside for a second because that doesn't really matter at this point. What matters is the propaganda that most people are believing, right? So we were simply trying to brainstorm new ways to avoid always using deadly force, which is pretty much the limited option that these officers are given. And in that situation, if that officer had pulled out some kind of semi-auto with rubber boo-boolets, maybe the woman would be here and she would be in jail for attempting to harm the other girl. And that's just one scenario if the officer was given the tools, right? Now, I understand there are certain officers that wouldn't want those tools and want to do things the good old-fashioned way, which, again, he was completely justified in doing. But why not hold people to account by saying, look, you could have used a less deadly method. I also fully understand that the powers that be have no incentive to really evaluate trying to change the rules of engagement or developing more options for non-lethal force. I get that because it's all about power. And that's why I did the show, because dead men tell no tales. And this is about power. It's about control. It's about division and maintaining the divide. And it's not really about preserving life for law enforcement, or at least the way that they've been trained. So we needed to have that discussion yesterday about non-lethal force so that we could put law enforcement on record and give them notice so that anybody believing what is happening knows that none of these other options were used, that these things weren't developed, these technologies. But if we never have the discussion, then we're never going to increase the way things, we're never going to fix the problem. Now, here's what's apparent to me. There are a lot of people still living in the right-left paradigm. And they were enraged, at least that's what it appears to me when looking at the chat, thinking I was roasting the officer for using deadly force on the knife-wielding teen. The point of the show was not to condemn him, and I think I said that several times in the show. I didn't say the officer was good or bad. I didn't say she was good or bad. It was to consider different options, to give them more tools so that police violence across the board could be de-escalated. And the instances of deadly force could be de-escalated. Now, here's the other point to all this. Nobody really knows what it's like to take someone's life until you have to live with that decision for the rest of your life. Now, I've told this story before. Some people said I was naive to the situation because I never carried one of these, in all this. And that's simply not the case. I wanted to clear the air with that as well. I grew up holding these things. We can't say what they are, right? My dad was Army Secret Ops. And then he went on to leadership positions in some of the most ruthless penitentiaries in California. DVI in San Quentin. He actually had conversation with Charles Manson. Now, he's currently buried at Santanella. We buried him with full military honors, and his gravestone read some kind of level of service that none of us even recognized, different from all the other gravestones around him. Now, I lived in San Quentin, inside the guard towers for a summer while visiting my dad, and he came home every day in tactical gear and would share stories about dragging prisoners out to go to the gas chamber. So I know about law enforcement and what it does to people because I knew what it did to my father. He would get drunk and he would tell me, "Don't make me kill again." And when he said that to people, we all knew that he wasn't joking. He even shared stories that to this day everybody thought he was crazy. But he shared stories of tracking down people like Sirhan. So, why are we such a bloodthirsty culture? Even when killing is justified, we want to go from 0 to dead. Why are we so reluctant to find alternatives to killing someone, even when it seems justified? And I ask you, many of you come here, you're Christians like myself, and that's not the spirit of Christ, just to go from 0 to dead. That's some other spirit creeping in through the right-left paradigm. And yes, we should always defend the innocent lives, but there also has to be a better way. You see, the enemy is the one whispering in your ear, telling you there are no other options. The enemy is the one whispering in your ear saying, "Oh, the legs don't present a viable target." Or the enemy is the one telling you, "Well, the femoral artery will bleed out in 5 minutes." The enemy is telling you that a rubber bullet won't stop somebody. The enemy is the one whispering in your ear, telling you those things because he doesn't want things to change. He wants bloodlust. That's what he's all about. If you asked, and you were sitting down with Jesus having a conversation about all this, would he be saying those things? "Oh, well, the legs aren't a big enough target." No, he wouldn't. And we all know that. Now, some of you were concerned that I was giving the powers that be ideas to further oppress us. And I argue not at all. That the tools that we came up with yesterday should replace deadly force, not expand it. Now, some of you had some really great ideas and suggestions. I tried to heart those and thumbs them up. I even copied and pasted some of your comments in the pinned comment on yesterday's show. Some of you came up with ideas like rapidly expanding foam that could fill up the entire cabin of a car and immediately neutralize the person in the car to de-escalate the situation, like a foam bomb. You shoot a canister or cartridge in it, or even a balloon of some kind, like a rapidly expanding balloon. They have the technology. They're just not using it. And some of the technology, I know a lot of you were giggling yesterday because of the terminology I was using, and it was funny. And I'll admit, I actually listened to the show again, and it was funny because you have to use like words like boo-boolets to describe things. Okay, I get that. But this is serious. This is serious as a heart attack. Because who are the ones suffering from this? It's not the cops suffering from each other, because they get away with it 99% of the time. We're the ones suffering. We're on the receiving end of this. So why wouldn't we come up with non-lethal types of force? Don't let the enemy creep in. Rapidly expanding foam bomb. Shoot it in the car. Person's not complying. And then, guess what? Nobody dies. Well, some of you might say, well, that's not fair. Well, if he asked me for my license and I didn't comply and he got me with the foam bomb, that's messed up. Well, you go to court and you argue your amendment rights in court, but at least you're not dead. At least you're not dead. and there wouldn't be any fear of being dead, because this is what should be the typical rule of engagement. You fire foam bomb in the car, you break the window, you fire the foam bomb in the car, and the guy's stuck in a giant piece of bubble gum or a balloon or whatever. And you all know for a fact that this would work. This idea would work. Because you've seen it work in other instances for other applications. What I was shocked to hear was so many people just dismissing these ideas, thinking we were crazy, thinking we were weak. Do you really honestly believe that there are 5 to 10% of police officers who really get off on just killing people? Do you understand that you have to live with that for the rest of your life? It haunts you. It haunted my father. It haunts you for the rest of your life. And any of you who have had to do it, whether you were ex-military or whatever, you know that. You know that it haunts you for the rest of your life. You can sound like a tough guy and say all you want about how you would do it in a heartbeat. And these officers, heck, they may have even going into it, wouldn't give it a second thought about taking someone's life. But guess what? They're being haunted. So why are we going to allow that to happen when we have different tools that we can use or expand the technology to help those people not have to make that decision? Now, some of others of you recommended some other ideas, like the first 2 cartridges being rubber and the rest being live rounds. And I know some of these ideas sound ridiculous, but it's because the technology hasn't been developed yet. Heck, 30 years ago, if you would have told me that you could see someone's face in a phone and we were having that discussion, that would have sounded ridiculous, wouldn't it? Be like, that's Star Trek, man. You've been watching too much Star Trek. But then here we are. And you can see someone's face in a phone. FaceTime. People don't even give it a second thought. Why are our police forces leading with deadly force? Why is the deadly force at their side instead of something that is non-lethal? That is the question. And it does require a complete paradigm shift. It actually does. Because since the founding of this country, the big bad sheriff in town and the gunslingers was the way we were founded. So of course it's going to be hard to break the mold. But I would much rather play out my rights alive and unharmed in court rather than knowing that someone could take me out. And again, we are the ones on the killing end, not them. So anything we can do to preserve human life is always going to be in our best interest. Now, I had an NDE, we're going to call it, near-death experience with a fish and game warden. And I've told you guys this story before, and I'm going to tell it again. Because I was faced with a life and death situation. I was down fishing on the McCollum River, and I didn't know it, but I was a week early before opening season. There was a guy on a property up the bluff building, and he kept looking down at me. I didn't know why. He was about 200 yards away. Kept looking down at me. I was like, why does this guy keep looking down at my truck? I'm just fishing. In fact, there was a certain point, came up to the car and I was raising my fish. I'm like, hey, I caught some. Little did I know, the guy called the game warden. People are weird in California. Okay, let me give you a little bit to the story here. As California has gotten more and more draconian, there are rich people that are moving in because they don't care about draconian. They love draconian because they feel safer. And they have a bunch of money to pay whatever taxes and whatever else they need, right? So what begins to happen is the rich people start oppressing the poor people. And they don't like it when a bunch of people are on their riverfront property fishing. They don't like it when a bunch of poor people are on their bluffs on the California coast throwing long poles over the bluffs to catch fish when they're in front of their $3 million properties. And so what happens is you get this tug of war. Now, rich people know how to get poor people in trouble. They simply call the cops. They say they make up a story, somebody they're concerned or whatever, they're concerned, or they think that someone's fishing without a license. And the fishing game are notorious for receiving phone calls. Some people will sit in their mansion, and every time they see a fisherman, they will call a fishing game, and the fishing game will come. Because why? Because the call that goes to fishing game goes something like this. Oh, hello, we'd like to leave a complaint. There are some people fishing down here on the bluff, and it appears dangerous. I don't believe they have a license. We're at 123 Riverfront Drive in our $5 million mansion, and we pay the majority of the property taxes in this area. We'd like you to do something immediately, and we have our hands in the pockets of the police chief, so you better do something this instance. This is how the conversation goes. And then what happens? They all jump in their vehicles with their Glock, and then next thing you know, you're getting touched up by fishing game. This has happened to me 100 times. And these guys, most of them are nice, but every once in a while you get the rookie. Now, here's what happened to me. I'm down there fishing. I had no idea I was doing anything wrong. I had 4 beautiful German brown trout on my stringer. I kind of did wonder why there was no one else around, but I figured, wow, this must be a really rare spot that I found. Wow, go figure. So, this fishing game guy pulls up, and I figure he's just going to check my license. He walks down. He's got his hand on his Glock. And immediately, this guy seems like he is in fear. And any of you that know, if you see a wild animal or a person that's afraid, they are the most dangerous ones. Because they perceive threat when there is none, and they are ready to take your life to preserve their life. Now, I'm a tall man. I'm 6'2", over 200 pounds. I sound really nice on my YouTube channel, but I'm a mixed black guy, and when I don't smile, I look kind of dangerous. And so, oftentimes people get a wrong perception about me based on my appearance until they start talking to me, and they're like, wow, you're a really nice guy. And I'll hear this. People will tell me this. Wow, you're a really nice guy. Well, what made you think I wasn't a nice guy? So, this guy walks up on me, and the moment he realizes that I've got fish in the water and that he's going to give me a ticket, it all went south. First thing he tells me is, put your hands where I can see them. We're talking about a fish. I said, what? He goes, put your hands where I can see them. And he's got his hand on his Glock. And we're out there in the middle of nowhere. There's no one else around. He could have done anything to me, and no one would have ever believed what happened to me. Except probably my mother. And even then, she probably would have thought I argued with him or something. And I said, whoa. He goes, and he yelled at me, put your hands where I can see them. And I said, oh, okay, all right. I go, what's the problem? He goes, well, you're a week early. Season won't start for another week. And I'm like, okay. I go, well, can we just let them go? And he goes, and he starts letting them go. He goes, stand back there. I go, all right. He lets the fish go. Then he goes, I want you to walk in front of me up the bluff. Stay in front of me. So we start walking up the bluff. It was pretty steep. It was about a 40 degree incline. I'm walking up the bluff. He's behind me. He keeps telling me with a strong voice, stay in front of me, stay in front of me. Now, at about this point, I could feel the hair on the back of my neck standing up. And I was afraid. I was like, wow, one wrong move. If I pretend, or let's say I fell, and, I had my backpack on and all my fishing gear, he could have assumed I had something in my backpack. The problem is he had not run my plates yet. He didn't know if I had a warrant or if I was a dangerous person. So he was in fear for his life. And like I just said earlier, when someone's in fear for their life, look out. This is the problem. The problem with law enforcement is they're scared. And the minute they see something that doesn't look right, their go-to is lethal force. That's the problem. And when I was in that situation, I realized it. This guy was probably about 5'4", 5'7", small stature, and he was afraid. Even though he had a bulletproof vest on, he was afraid of me. So I did everything I could to comply. He walked me up the hill. We got up to my truck. His truck was in front of mine. He asked me for my license. I gave it to him. And he makes up some story about, hey, don't worry about it. I'll write this. Well, what happened first was he ran my profile. He ran my plates, ran my driver's license. And I told him before this, I go, I don't have any warrants. I go, I'm a college educated person. I'm just here fishing. I'm visiting my mother. He didn't believe any of that. He probably thought I was making it all up. So I was like, then he ran everything, and he realized that I was telling the truth. I had no warrants. I was a safe person. And at that point, the entire mood of the interaction changed completely. He became really nice. There was no stand over there. Put your hands where I can see them. Put your hands on the hood of the car. I mean, I was one step short of him searching me for a fish, you guys. A fish. Do you understand what's happening here? So, once he knew that I was fine, and then all of a sudden the guy starts chitty-chatting me up while he's writing me a ticket. Oh yeah, I'm glad you're here. Blah, 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 blah. Look, I'm gonna write this for a different county. They'll go a little easier on you. Just pay the fine. You'll be fine. No big deal. I go, well, how much is the fine? He goes, oh, no big deal. He goes, we don't really know, but it's no big deal. He writes me the ticket. He goes, and I go, look, the rules in the guide are very unclear. I go, I had no idea I was fishing out of season. And he goes, well, here it is. Let me pull out he pulls out the guide. He shows me, hey, here you go. Yeah, it's right here. I go, yeah, don't you see how that's not in the place it should be in the guide? He goes, well, it's in there. So it's your responsibility to know the law, not our responsibility to explain the law to you. And I go, okay, well, I feel like this is unfair. I had no idea, but whatever. I'll take the ticket. So the ticket comes in the mail, and the ticket is, you ready for this? It was close to $300. $300. And that wasn't even including the fish. He didn't ding me for the fish because we let them go. They were on a stringer. They were handled properly. They were alive and well. They swam right off. They were in the water already on a stringer. And I'll never forget, thanks to Bill Swindle. I know his last name sounds funny, but he was the one. He sent me some money to pay for this ticket because he felt bad. I didn't ask for anybody to send me money to pay for the ticket, but Bill sent me like $300 to pay for this ticket because he wanted me to continue to enjoy fishing and put up fishing videos. So thanks, Bill, for doing that. So, moral of the story is even a fish and game officer is walking around with their hand on their Glock, afraid of the people that they interact with. And this was California, up in the foothills of the Bacolami River. And the officer who actually had this interchange with me, if you're out there, we're trying to find non-lethal options for officers so that you don't have to make the decision to take someone's life when you're faced with it. So I wanted to share that story because I do know what it's like to be in that situation and how your life can feel in danger. Now let's get to the rest of the show. I want to switch gears here because I'm going to be uploading some of my most controversial videos. I have them saved on a drive. They're not on YouTube anymore. I basically stripped my Enter the Stars Reloaded channel down. Took all the controversial vids off of there because I wanted to maintain that channel. And I've got them on a drive. And I'm going to be uploading those one at a time to Odyssey. So if you guys ever have requests, special requests for old videos that you don't see anymore, just shoot me an email, caseybrown1973 @gmail.com, and I'll look through the files and upload it to Odyssey. And so if you haven't already, go sub to @Enter the Stars on Odyssey. Now, I might also start doing all of our CV19 updates over there as well, so we can preserve this channel. Looks like YouTube is very sensitive about anyone saying anything that conflicts with the C to the D to the C, which means we basically can't talk about it anymore. I mean, we're using different language, but pretty soon they'll pick up, the algos will pick up on that, and we'll be in big trouble. So now, many of you in the comments keep telling me that they keep unsubbing you from our channel here. A lot of you, like 20 of you or more, understand that only a small percentage of people who come to a channel ever comment. So the problem is probably far worse. And the only thing I could think of is YouTube doesn't want us growing this channel. This has plagued us since the beginning, that YouTube continues to unsub people from the channel. So make sure that you check back, make sure you're subbed. This is another reason why we do shows every day, so that people know where to find us and they know exactly what time. So if you don't get a notification, just show up in the morning. We'll be here. And so let's get into the rest of today's show. Several of you asked me to look at the new Batman trailer. This one here. Well, it's actually not new. It's been around for 8 months. Filming wrapped for this on March 13th, 3/13. But the film isn't set to release until March 2022, which is just really weird. It's a long lead time for a trailer to come out before the release of a film. They're saying it's because of CV19. Now, the reason why we're looking at this film is not because of the trailer. The trailer is pretty non-eventful. It's pretty mundane. But we're going to look at the twin aspect to all this. The twin aspect. Now, what's going on with this? Let's scroll this up here. Here's the Batman. Here's the release, 3/4/222, but it wrapped filming on 3/13. I'll show you that. There it is. So, what is going on with the twin aspect of this film? Well, earlier last year, they disclosed that there would be a twin. These twins were going to appear in the film. Here they are here. Now, many of you recognize these twins. Let's see. There's a show I was watching called The Leftovers, and they appear in that series. That's from like 2013, 2014. I've been kind of watching that series, see what I could pick up from it. It's like a Rapture type scenario, but of course it makes Christians look bad, and all the people that are left behind basically go insane and discredit God every single episode. So these boys were in it, and they're also going to appear in the new Batman film. So there's something weird going on here, because we had discovered that there was some kind of twin birth explosion going on, born out of the lockdowns. This is mainstream news. All you got to do is type in twin birth explosion, and you'll see that all these twins are being born. So what is so special about twins now appearing in the Batman film that won't be released till 2022? Well, archaeologists had discovered this ancient Mayan Bat God. His name is Camazotz. Here he is right here. Now, originally, I accidentally shared some fake news by accident. Didn't even realize I was doing it. But one of you guys set me straight. I'm always open to correction, as long as you do it nicely. And there were these images that were being circulated around, and this was definitely fake news. And what they led people to believe was that this was an ancient artifact that was unearthed. And this was the Bat God from the ancient Mayan civilization. It looks just like Batman. Problem is, this is not an ancient artifact. It's an artist's rendition of Camazotz. So it's a modern rendition. So when this happened, I almost tossed the story. I wasn't going to do a show on it, but then I kept reading. There's something really weird about Camazotz, the Bat God. Now let's read through this a little bit. He is a bat god, and his name means death bat. And he is associated with night, death, and sacrifice. Now, here's the crazy thing. Because Camazotz, the Batman god of ancient Mayan lore, battled blowgun-wielding twins. Let's read about it. In Popol Vuh, Camazotz are the bat-like monsters encountered by the Maya hero twins, Hunahpu and Balanque, during their trials in the underworld of Xibalba. Now, what ended up happening is they had these blowguns. They were trying to hide inside these blowguns, these twins, and Camazotz, one of them popped their head out, and Camazotz chopped their head off. That's the way it all went down. And one of them was decapitated, but his brother made for him a new head, and it grew back, and this was the ability these twins had, was to regenerate themselves. Even when they were killed in some of these stories, here in the Wikipedia article, they would regenerate and come back to life. Now, these twins represented duality. They were complementary pairings of life and death, sky and earth, day and night, sun and moon. So, is this all starting to sound familiar? Pretty much the theme on this channel for years has been exposing the duality, the above and below. And the twins were actually conceived out of their dead father's seed. So in effect, they were clones. Now, the weird thing is they had spots. They were covered in spots like a jaguar. And the story continues because they tricked their stepbrothers up into a tree. They caused the tree to grow out of control into the heavens. Is this all starting to sound familiar? Like a Jack and the Beanstalk kind of scenario? And when they were trapped in the tree, they turned them into monkeys. And after that, they turned themselves into the sun and the moon. So this is the story, or the myth, of the Mayan hero twins. A lot of this is what we've all been talking about. So now you see how this brings us back full circle to the twins that are supposed to appear in the new Batman film. Now, nobody knows their role, but I think we can all agree there's some eerie similarities between the Mayan Bat God, who battled the blowgun-wielding twins in ancient mythology, and the upcoming Batman film. Now let's read about what these twins might be up to, because nobody knows what role they're going to play. Here's an announcement from last year, what the Batman twin casting could mean for the movie. DC Extended Universe has had a fascinating life in theaters, full of peaks and valleys. Warner Brothers seemed to have found its footing in the past few years with a slew of movies that were critically acclaimed. Birds of Prey, The Phantom is looking ahead to exciting projects coming down the pipeline. It says here, the new report indicates that the Teen Wolf's Max and Charlie Carver have been cast in the blockbuster. But who might they play? In Teen Wolf, Max and Charlie Carver played twin brothers, werewolves named Ethan and Aiden. The actors are often paired together on the screen, and now appears they'll do the same one more in Batman, the Batman. There's no indication of who they might be playing in the movie, but there are some possibilities swirling around the internet. Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Now, these guys weren't actually twins. They just looked the same, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. And so they might play these two. I doubt it. That's kind of silly. The other scenario would be the trigger twins. As you see here, seems like it could be more like it. But here is the possible role that I think that they may play. And I guess we're going to have to see and wait to find out. The Abramovici twins. This is in the Batman universe, these twins. And it's interesting because they are Russian and their names are Hammer and Sickle. Of course, their names are Hammer and Sickle, right? And look what we have here. One of them is wearing a clown mask, which would fit right into everything we've been talking about. Now, the story goes that these twins were conjoined until they got into a fight. And then they got separated. Kind of silly, right? But the thing that interests me the most is the Russian doll twinning aspect, which is a lot of what we've talked about. Russian dolls, things within things, nested realities. And that fits right in with this as well. So I guess we're going to have to see how all this plays out. And so this is what I wanted to share with you guys today regarding the upcoming Batman. Let's go back into the chat here. We'll hang out a little bit longer. I know the majority of the show was about a follow-up on yesterday's show, but I wanted to make sure I cleared the air there with all of that, in case anyone had any doubts about my beliefs on non-lethal force. And we can do a little Q&A for a bit if you guys want. Yeah, right? Jane, let me pump you up. Funny. Okay. What do Hammer and Sickle represent? I can't remember, but definitely that's the communist era, and so it represents that. We did see the hammer. Didn't we see the Hammer and Sickle in I Pet Goat 2 as well? That guy was sinking into the sludge. He had the tattoo. He was holding the hammer and sickle, so there could be a connection to that as well. Guess we're gonna have to wait to find out till 2022, if you could believe that. Yeah, it certainly sounds like the evil Marina Abramovici twins, right? I wonder if she dealt in twins at all. Have to dig into that. Okay. Oh yeah, someone mentioned that California is invoking this new curriculum that focuses on these ancient gods who sacrificed people. And make no mistake, that's all part of the agenda. Maybe that's why we have this Mayan or possible Mayan theme to the Batman. Your DNA is your book of the name written in the book of life. I would agree with that, Tom. Something to that effect. Slouchy means sickle. There you go. Yes, black and white, dualistic, double-minded. We have the breath of life in us. Yes, and I feel like, now I don't know this, but I feel like the breath of life is like the song. It's like a song. It's some kind of frequency that God whispers into us to bring to life our DNA or our atomic structure. We know that atoms are held together in octaves, shells within shells. And it almost resembles sound, like sound waves. It's all held together. It's vibrating. And you have to wonder if that isn't what is happening with how we were created, all held together with the sound of God. And there's a lot of singing going on up in heaven with the angels. What if that singing is part of how things are held in order? Never know. I don't know. I guess we're going to find all this out soon. Yeah, we can't bring the true creator into the schools, but they fill our children's head with all the false stuff, the ancient myths, all the disinformation, all these Mayan, Mesoamerican gods. You're absolutely right. Well, we know that homeschooling is at an all-time high. 10% of children are being homeschooled right now. So, all right. Yes, God spoke the world into existence. I agree, Crochet. Werewolf says, no, it's not sickle, it's jaws or mouth. I think it means both. And it means shark, too. All right. So, tomorrow, we're going to get into some more Westworld. And we're basically going to look at two of the trailers that I had uploaded over the weekend. And it's all about the maze and finding the center. So that's what we're going to be working on tomorrow for tomorrow's live show. So we're going to be pulling up those trailers and going through them in fine detail, giving you guys a more of an explanation as to what I was trying to show you with those. Min and Max were twins in Batman, says Michael. Well, that's cool. We'll have to wait and see who the twins are actually. Min and Max. Guess I missed those. Yes, be careful who or what you vibrate with. And we all know that, Mary. You know, the Bible even says bad associations spoil the useful things that you learn. I think it's 1 Corinthians 15:33. 15, yeah, something like that. Why is it 33, right? Well, understand that the enemy added the chapter and verse numbers to the Bible. It didn't used to have that. And so you could catalog and reference things. But yeah, so basically the Bible says that. So what is the concept behind that? Well, probably the fact that if you're around the wrong people, you're going to vibrate in the wrong way. They're going to bring you down. Look at, they've got a 666 watchers watching. Unreal. Doesn't that seem to happen like every show? I swear they got to have us on some kind of algorithm messing with our channel, because it's like every day we're messed with. So if you're around the wrong people, you're going to vibrate in the wrong way. They're going to drag, I call it dragging you into a hole, is what seems to happen when you're around the wrong people. All of a sudden things start not going right. You might wreck your car, or scratch your car, or, window breaks, you get a rock jumps up and hits your window. All of those are spiritual manifestations when you're around the wrong people. And, weird things happen. You get ripped off, or something gets stolen from you. Now, you might not think it has anything to do with that person. It might not in the material world, but in the spiritual world, you bring around that energy. Some of it's demonic energy. So you got to be very careful with that. Some people, they're like vampires. They'll suck the life out of you. They'll suck anything out of your life that is good. Next thing you know, you're going to be filled with chaos in your life, just like they are. So, all right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out today. We'll be back on here tomorrow. I love you all. Have a great day.